Hello there, and welcome to the inside of my head. Today's topic will be about the Stone Age. I'm actually thinking about making a whole series of videos about the Stone Age. And, well, that's because I have something in my teeth. Well, it's not because I have something in my teeth, of course, but I cannot concentrate on speaking when that's happened. However, I've been referring to the Stone Age a lot in these videos. I actually think I have done it in all of my 4 previous videos to this. So I was thinking, when I'm clearly so happy to speak about the Stone Age, why not do it? So, I've been thinking about making this series of me talking about the Stone Age. I'm making multiple videos about it to go into different specific details about the Stone Age. We can call it inside. I already fucked it up. It's not inside. It's the. We can call it the inside of my Stone Age head. Or I don't know. Maybe I find a better title. It will be in the title of this video anyway. So you will see if I find a better title than that. However, I think the specific topic of today should be a general perspective of the Stone Age, from my head at least. So, where to start? I don't know. Maybe with the start. It's I think it's pretty hard to say where the Stone Age really starts, because what is the Stone Age? Well, when you look at where the Stone Age ends, and it feels pretty stupid that I'm already going to the end of the Stone Age when I have to speak about the start. How is it easier to speak about the end? Well, it's not, and therefore it's easier to start with, because it's so hard to determine the end of the Stone Age that it's the easiest one to debug to the start of it, because nowadays the Stone Age are belief. I don't think you can call it. Let's call that for now. Maybe I find a better word for it. But the Stone Age are believed nowadays, at least, to end between 2,000 and 6,000 years before we start the counting. So you can add 2,000 years to that if you want. So between 4,000 and 8,000 years ago. And the reason why it's such a big number, it's actually, if we count from nowadays back again, it was between 4,000 and 8,000 years ago. One of the options are the double of the other option. That's not very specific. It's like to say humans are between 1 and 2 meters high. Well, it is kind of true, but it's not so specific. But it's also not true, because few humans are under 1 meter and few are more than 2 meters. But now I'm thinking too much again. It makes really no sense to have such a big leap. So why that's happened? Well, it actually makes sense, kind of, at least, because the reason why we say that is because if we go in more specific details, it actually ended 2,000 years BC somewhere in the world, and 6,000 years BC other places in the world. So it's because the Stone Age didn't end equally around the world. Humankind were not equally evolved in all of the world at once. We have evolved in different speeds, and that should not be a surprise for you, because that's the same thing we see today. today we are pretty close to be just like equally evolved in every country in the world. For example, I got pretty surprised a year or two ago when I discovered that many countries in Africa actually has 4G mobile internet, and they not even just has 4G, but they actually had better 4G coverage and speeds than in my country, which are again Denmark, which are a very high developed country. And I think most people from Denmark will see themselves as being in a country that is longer. What can you even call that? Has reached a further path in time of technology than most African countries, if not all of Africa. But that is simply not true, because some of Africa is pretty advanced, and actually most of Africa nowadays has at least some areas that are pretty advanced. Of course, not every person are equally rich, and the poor people of Africa, of course, don't have money enough to buy a smartphone that can use the 4G network. However, it's more like prioritizing, to be honest. They prioritize to get food to make them not die of hunger, of course, before they buy a smartphone. So in that case, they are this civilized than us, because here every single person in all of Denmark owns a smartphone, at least in average, because many people own more smartphones. So the few people that don't own a smartphone, they are still outnumbered by the ones that owns two. So we at least have more smartphones in use than we are persons living here in Denmark. So we cannot really complain about not having money to buy a new smartphone. So there's these differences still today. But just 20 years ago, it was way bigger, that many countries didn't even have internet. Like India, they have of course have internet for multiple years, but actually I think it was in 2021 or something, a new company started in India which actually made internet cheap for the first time. So like I think the amount of people owning Wi-Fi at all in India was like fifth doubled after this company started in just 1 year. So if we say there's 1.5 billion people in India, let's say around 100 million of them have internet before. Now 500 millions have internet. That's 400 million more people in 1 year that have internet. So that's a really fast evolution that just happened in 1 or 2 years ago. No. So India I have never seen India as the least developed country, and many of you watching are probably from India, so hello there. And not and actually, but more like a but, or so, I don't know. Well, so it actually surprised me to hear that there were so many people in India not having internet yet. Because it seems like many people in India has internet, but that's because you are so many people in India. So many people has internet, but there are just so many more people that don't have internet. So even a country like that, which again I've never seen, like a very underdeveloped country, but even a country like that has get some new things in the past couple of years and have moved closer towards countries like most countries in Europe and USA and so on. So we actually just starting to close the gap between the evolutionary states. Just like 20 or 40 years ago, there was like maybe 60 to 80 years evolutionary leap between the most developed country and the least developed country in what technologies they own and have money enough to own, like a private person, and so on. But we are pretty close to closing that gap nowadays, I think, at least closer than ever. And we're getting closer in a faster speed than ever. So it's not hard for me to imagine that thousands of years ago there was thousands of years between these people. And also you should remember that development didn't happen so fast in the Stone Age. So when we are talking 4,000 years ago versus 8,000 years ago, what happened in these 4,000 years? Well, not much happened. So maybe some people in the world was 4,000 years ahead of other people, but it's not because they managed to get so many things done in the next 4,000 years before the people was catching up. Not like they're catching up. They have never been catching up. Like I'm telling you, even today, every people in the world has not catch up to the most developed peoples in the world. So it's not like they're catching up. It's just like maybe that where the catching up started. So when the 4,000 years they were ahead was gone, and we were in the time period 2,000 years BC, then the persons that were finishing Stone Age 6,000 years BC, they were maybe 3,000 years ahead or something. So they closed the gap by 1,000 years or something. That's just my guessing, my thinking. What my point is, not much has happened, so it makes sense that they were 4,000 years ahead. I can say it another way. 4,000 years ahead in the Stone Age are less significant than 20 years ahead in our days, now, the present. Because 20 years now means that your smartphone will not has a touch screen at all. Because, well, we actually invented the touch screen in 2001, but it was not really used before, well, 2005 the earliest, but not really widespread before the first iPhone in 2007, and not many people use their money on that. So it was mostly like 2009 the most people knew touchscreen even existed and have tried the touchscreen at all. So we're talking about you will not have the touchscreen. We have had camera in our phone since the early 90s, but they were pretty shit, and you could not do what I'm doing right now, which is actually filmed by my smartphone. And if you haven't seen it, it's 4K HDR. I'm not sure if it will be HDR. It depends on if I have to edit the video. The prior 4 videos has not been HDR because I have edited it and I have not have the time to make it encode in HDR. That's a whole nother story. But it's at least 4K, but it is recorded in 4K HDR. Which are two things that didn't exist 20 years ago at all in any camera ever. But that's one thing about to do it with your smartphone. You could not even, as a normal person, buy a consumer camera that were that good as my smartphone is today to record videos or take pictures or anything else, actually, whatever. But also the television 20 years ago were actually just starting to be full HD, but only the really expensive one. It was not getting normal to have a full HD television, and not a 30 tommer plus television, not a 50 tommer plus, but more than 30 tommer. We were still in the 20s, most of us with not so much money. We what else do we have? Bluetooth was used a lot in the 90s to send pictures to other phones, but Bluetooth headphones were not that in because they were pretty shit and very expensive. Well, today they're getting even more expensive, but that's because people today just want more, better quality all the time. So we're getting both cheaper products today, but also more expensive. You can buy television for millions of dollars today. As a normal human, again, not as a company, a normal human consumer television. Like the most expensive television from the different companies are highly likely up in the millions of dollars, or at least $1 million. Not millions as many millions, but like 1 million something dollars. So we have this wide spread of product to use, but it's more like what do we have? How are our products normally? We have laptops today that are so thin, so light, but also so powerful. We can do whatever on them. And laptops is a hard thing because how a laptop feel, a computer at all feels, it is depending on how fast technology move compared to how fast our ideas move. Because as stronger a computer you have, as heavier a program you can run. But you have to invent that program to see it run on the computer. But you can also invent is that the word? Yeah, it is, right? A program that is too strong for any computer to run. It's like gaming are a good point, because we have always had this problem in gaming. Many games are made so low quality compared to the computer that existed that every computer mostly can run it on max settings. But then there are these few games that can run on max settings on the newest computer, but only the newest. But then there are also the games that cannot run at max settings on any computer existing today. And that's because they have made it future-proof, so it can run on max settings on future computers. We have the famous Crysis that only began to be able to be run on max settings in like 2015 to 17 or something. Today, like every computer mostly can, not like every computer have to have a graphic card, but every graphic cards can do that today. But now they have made a Crysis Remastered, and that is the same thing because they have leaped way ahead, so no computer today can really run Crysis Remastered at max settings. And we have the same thing happening with the Cyberpunk 2077, which is a total new game if you don't know it. It was firstly announced in 2012, but it is a total new game that came out like a year ago or something. And that has happened a lot of bugs, but no matter what, you cannot run it on max settings on any computer existing today. Even the best graphic cards existing today, the RTX 3090, and there have been something about the 3090 Ti, but we don't really know much about the 3090 Ti, so let's just say the 3090 are still, in some perspective, the best graphic cards today. And that can run Cyberpunk 2077 at max setting in 8K at like 15 frames a second or something. Or maybe that was even at 4K only 4K, like. But the graphic card and the game are made to be run at 8K if you want to, at least. But 15 frames a second are not doable. Even 30 frames a second are not really recognized as a runnable frame rate in games. You need at least 50, some say 60, but at least 50. Really at least 50 frames to run it. So we need 3 times the power of the 3090 to run it at max settings. So we not even close, kind of, but that is the most powerful graphic cards. Remember that if you had a 3070 like I have, don't even dream of 8K. Even 4K at everything max will not even be 15 frames. It will be like 5 frames or something, maybe, if I'm lucky. I'm not even sure about that, but I cannot even run it. Maybe if I try to run a full HD at max setting, it would be 15 frames or something. I don't know. And again, that's not doable. So even the second highest setting all around will not even be doable on my computer. I need at least to go down the third highest setting. So that would probably be high or something. Medium or high, I'm not sure how many steps they have. So I'm not even sure what the point is I'm making. I'm just thinking about computers now. It should be about the Stone Age. I'm talking about computers and newest graphic cards, the newest tech, but I'm talking about my point is a computer in the 90s could feel very powerful depending on the programs you run on it, and the newest computer today, the highest specs, the best graphic cards can feel a bit sloppy if you try to run Cyberpunk 2077 at max settings, because that's a program so heavy nothing can run it today, like Crysis back in the day. So that's just how it is. A computer can feel like everything depending on what you do. It can feel like you just need to have a 144 Hz screen and the mouse will feel so fast and so responsive because you can see no lag of it. But then the rest of the computer can just be shit. But it will feel fast if it's only the mouse you're moving, if you're not doing anything else on your computer, not using any of the other things on your computer. A computer can feel so incredibly fast if you have like 64 GB of RAM and you do something that uses RAM, but you can have a sloppy CPU. But if you do something that only uses RAM, then it will feel indefinitely fast because you will not use all the RAM. So of course it will. So computers are hard to talk about. But my point is, from 20 years ago, we didn't really have a lot of the things you have to do. Oh, smartwatch was not invented. Virtual reality was not invented. Cars didn't have Bluetooth. They didn't even have a jack output. A jack output is actually something I still see like a very new thing in cars, because I rarely see a new car and rarely stay in a new car. But of course Bluetooth are in new cars nowadays. So electrical cars and hydrogen cars didn't exist. The windmills that makes power didn't really exist. For real at least, solar power didn't really exist. For real at least, like today, like in use and for normal people. I have multiple solar cells in power banks and stuff, and you see solar cells on private people's rooftops and stuff today. So that didn't happen 20 years ago. So if one country was 20 years behind us, for real 20 years, like they have not seen anything we have seen the last 20 years, anything we have invented the last 20 years. And I'm not talking about my country, I'm talking about the humankind have invented new stuff. Like the least developed country in the world don't invent stuff. They buy it from other countries, but they just prioritize what they need. So when we humankind invent stuff, it only happens once, and then it comes to the rich country first, and then it goes down the line. So anything we as humankind have invented the last 20 years, if there was a country that have not seen any of this thing, not a single thing we have invented the last 20 years, then it will really be behind today, because that's a lot. But 4,000 years ago, 2,000 years was nothing, and 4,000 still kind of nothing. Not that much. So back to that topic. The Stone Age ended between 2 and 6,000 years BC, and this feels like a lot of different, but it's not. But if I haven't explained it clearly, then the difference is what tools they use, because Stone Age, as the name tells you, is about stones. That it's the age where we use stone for the most part as a tool. So stones was the most used tool in the Stone Age. Like today we will call it the computer age, because computer are our most used tool. We use computer in supermarkets, offices, like every single job you use a computer. If you don't use a computer on your job, you use your smartphone your way home in the train. Anyway, so we use computer to every single thing every single day. I use a computer to record this because I'm not recording with a camera. I'm recording with a smartphone, which are a computer. That and indeed, every single camera today are a computer because the camera thinks for you. And if you're really professional, then you can go inside the system and change things and tell the camera what to do. But else the camera tells you what to do, and that means it's a computer if it can tell you what to do. If it thinks by itself, it's a computer. So we use computer for everything. Even my speakers, my sound systems, my Bluetooth speakers, they're computers. My headphones are computers. They think a lot. They think more than me for most of the time. That seems impressive, I know, but they really do. We use our television to not just watching films, movies, whatever you want to call them, television program, news, whatever you watch on them, YouTube. Of course, you do that a lot. You shall always do that. Never forget to watch YouTube every single day. But we also use it to communicate with search, internet, gaming, stream, everything that can be streamed today on our televisions. So today will be the computer age. It was called a thing about the same principles as the Stone Age was. So that's why I call the Stone Age, basically. So of course, to get out of the Stone Age, we need to be using other tools. But it's better than stone. Well, to the things we did with them at that time, not much. Actually, the only thing that could be better than stone was metal. So of course, we invented some metal. Don't invent because metal existed, but we invented a resource to use metal, and that single thing happened at different points in time in different parts of the world. And that's because we didn't really communicate with each other on 1,000 kilometers of distance at least. If we did, we will have to walk the 1,000 kilometers of distance, and that will take multiple years probably, because we will probably settle down at some point. So if we even did that, it will probably I forgot what tools we have to tell them about anyway. So that development happened at different points in time in different parts of the world. So it made kind of sense the Stone Age ended at different points in time. But back to the main thing I was about to answer, and that was where the Stone Age started. Well, we know where it ended, and it ended in many different time periods around the world, because we invented metal tools in different points in time, different places in the world. So that must mean that the Stone Age probably also started in different points in time, different places in the world, because probably not every humanid on any place in the world, or not any place, but every place in the world, pick up a stone and did something with it on the same time at once. That will probably not have been how it happened. And as I told you, 4,000 years ago, a gap in 4,000 years was nothing. So imagine 3 million years ago, there a gap in 1 million years will be like nothing. And that is probably also what the case is here, because many believe that it's around 3 million years ago we used stone tools for the first time. Or rather, we know that. And now I start to say just 3 million years ago. I could also say 3 million years and 2,000 years ago. But these 2,000 years we have counted doesn't really matter now, because we cannot know it that precise anyway. So when I say 3 million years ago, If I mean 3 million years BC or 3 million years ago, literally, that doesn't matter anyway. So I'm just saying 3 million years ago because I feel more. I feel it feels better in my mouth to say that. So I'd just like to say that more. So 3 million years ago, we know we used tool there. We have clearly evidence that we used tool 3 million years ago. But it seems like we have maybe used stones 5 million years ago too. So maybe the Stone Age started 5 million years ago. We are not really sure about that. It depends on the site you're reading. The first answer you see when you Google it is probably 3 million years ago. But if you think about it, we don't really know if we have used stone tools before that. So it could be 5 million years ago, it could be even more. So it's very hard to answer that question, and that's why I answered the other one first, because that is kind of easy to answer compared to this one, because we really don't know anything that precise about how it started. Or we know kind of how it started, but when it started is actually harder. I have to look at the timing here. Oh. So, I just took a little toilet break. Or restroom break if you are like what can I call it? Afraid of nasty stuff, whatever. Doesn't matter. But I think that fits really good into a Stone Age talk anyway, because that's one of our most basic needs. So it makes sense for me to fulfill my basic needs before I'm talking about how we evolved into the basic needs we have today. I'm talking about how the Stone Age started. I have been talking about that for mostly all of the half hour, or have been off topic probably 20% of, or 20 minutes of that time, but I've tried to talk about how the Stone Age started for the whole video now. But the problem with determining when we use stones the first time is that even a lot of apes today use stone, and we don't really see that so much because we don't find stones in nature which are cut in shapes and stuff, because that advanced the apes not. So when we finally find stone which has cuts in it and stuff, then we find out that they are million years ago, they are million years old and are made of human. So the stones used by apes today are not really so easy to discover, because they don't really do anything to the stone, but they use the stone to crack coconuts and stuff. So you cannot really see that the stone has been used for anything. And that's the problem, because it's very likely or mostly certain that the first use of stone we as a humanid had was the same use apes use today, that we just use the stone to smash things. We cannot smash with our hands, or will hurt if we did it with our hands. So that makes a lot of sense. But how long have we been doing that before we was starting to shaping the stones? And when we first shaped the stone, we didn't shape it in a very advanced way. We just like cut it in half, maybe into two parts, something. But that could also be happening like natural by nature. So even small adjustments to the stone will not be able to like see in our fossil records. We have to do something very human to the stone before we can see it. So that is really the problem here. So it's actually kind of likely that some ancestor has used stone like 9 million years ago. So the Stone Age actually happened between 3 and 9 million years ago. So that's a factor of 3 as a difference, so very unprecise. So But that depends on how you determine the Stone Age. I think that's the Stone Age, because I think the Stone Age should just be that simple, where we have used stones. So the start of our uses of stone should be included in the Stone Age. Of course, you can make a more precise definition of the Stone Age, where it will not include the first uses of stone, but something that happened 3 million years ago or whatever. So I'm not telling you that the Stone Age actually started 9 million years ago, because I don't have the to say the authority. At least I don't have the rank to tell you that. I just say, upon my research and the papers I have read, it seems like we don't really know where the Stone Age started, and it's still up to determination, and it'll probably change in a couple of years. It'll probably change a lot of times again before we really settle down for explanation. We will hold on to the rest of our humankind history. So there's just belief in my belief where the Stone Age started, kind of fluently between the 3 and 9 million years ago, maybe 5 million years ago, and stuff. Then what is inside the Stone Age? Well, the Stone Age is actually, even if you only take the last 3 million years, like the 3 million years we know for sure is a Stone Age. We can talk about that first, then we can start including the prior times actually. Or maybe we should do the opposite. Let's do the opposite actually. They're starting by the outer rim of the Stone Age, the maybe Stone Age. The first hominids evolved from what we will call clearly apes around 9 million years ago, where we had something. I forgot the name again. It actually has such a good name in a way, like very memorable, I think, when I read it, but I always forget it. I don't know why. But we have a bunch of different hominids that started around 9 million years ago, and some started to be discovered 7 million years ago. Not that we discovered them 7 million years ago, but we probably did, because they were the cleverest beings, so they discovered themselves. No, we have discovered some species 7 million back of some other hominids. So that kind of the two first points where something really happened. And the one from 9 million years ago, again, they probably used stones for something. And the one 7 million years ago also probably used stone for something. And that is a part of my research, and that is why it seems strange to me that there are also articles still writing about our first uses of stone for 3 million years ago, because that's simply not true when you read deeper into the stories about we have, or some apes has used stones 9 million years ago. But it depends on what they mean by used stones again. So that's why you should never just read one paper and then just believe it all, because it's never written so precise that you can just believe it simply by believing it. You also have to plug the holes that are in the story. And the holes in the story are most often that we use stone, but to what and how and what kind of users is mostly never cleared totally out. So they normally just start by saying we start using stone at this point, and then we begin to do this and that with the stones. But they never talk about what did we do before starting using stones. And the answer to that is most of the time we also use stones, just in a different way. So we didn't start to use stone here. We started to use stone in a specific way at this point in time. And that is most of the time where the holes comes from. And we have figured that out, that we started by having some hominids 9 million years ago, but how did the hominids look looked. Again, my times are always fucked up. How did they look? Well, a lot like apes. More apes than humans, I think most will agree on. They were a bit longer in their body than most apes, and has a bit. I think it's too much to say a bit more human-like legs than most apes, because it's true that they're more human-like than most other apes, but it's not more human-like than it's like other apes. It's still more an ape leg. It has like 1% human in it, but it's still 99% ape leg. So it just seems a little bit. You could see that if the evolution continues, then you probably end up with a human. I can imagine that when I look at the first apes or humanids. See, I even call it apes. And they're of course hairy all over the place. They look like a gorilla that is stretched, I will say. Mostly have the same color as a gorilla. We probably didn't actually know if all were black or dark brown colored, but maybe some have light brown hair or something, I don't know. We probably don't know that, it's just what we are imagining. But I'll just start by imagining that. And then 7 million years ago, not much have changed. It's actually only like 1 million years ago I will start recognizing the figure as a human more than an ape. It's only like 1 million years ago we started to lose our hair and walk a lot on 2 legs, like more than we did on all 4, and having human-like arms and human-like legs and stuff. I started to get big titties and all the human-like stuff with our bodies. As I told you in one of my other videos, Homo erectus is one of the first one that can that kind of seems sexy. But again, not sexy in a good way. That sounds stupid. Sexy is a good word, right? But not sexualized in a good way. You can feel bad by looking at Homo erectus, but I'm pretty sure you will not be horny. That's what I'm trying to say. And that's, again, that the earliest point you can feel that it's like 1 million years ago. So the one between 9 and 7 million years ago, and even then at 5, even the one at 3 million years ago where the Stone Age where surely started, it didn't look like humans at all. Still a lot more like apes. So it is more like, did we use stones? If it should be like start of humans' time, it should have started 1 million years ago, the Stone Age. But we don't really determine the Stone Age by where did humans start. It's more like, or humankind started, more like the tools itself. So again, 9 million years ago, a new kind of ape came. The first hominid came, and it probably started to use stones in some way and another, and sticks maybe even too in some way and another, like sticks to get some ants off of the holes in the ground and stuff. Poke to things they couldn't reach with their arms and stuff like that, probably. Then we of course evolved to be more and more advanced in these type of uses, and we started to be crawling less in trees and more around on the ground, and therefore we started to try walking on 2 legs, but not like all the time, because that didn't feel comfortable for us at that time. At that point in time, So yes, it's mostly a slowly evolution in that kind of direction until we reach 3 million years ago, where we started to do stones, like to develop stones, change them a lot, make tools out of stones. Not like very complicated tools like a knife or anything like that, but we made a knife by cutting the stone in half and make a sharp edge on the stone. But it's more like an axe than a knife, if you should compare it to something. We maybe used it as a knife sometimes, but probably more like an axe, to be honest. Probably was beating more with it than we was cutting, because it was not that precise that it makes sense to cut things anyway. You need it really sharp to cut things, or else you don't have the strength to do it. I know what to do, but I don't know if I have the strength to do it. But that was not a good impression today. I could do it better if I tried hard. But if we are like slamming it down, it will probably cut the thing anyway. However, then there came the famous Homo erectus, but that one came like, what was it, like 600,000 or 700,000 years ago, I think. And actually, at some point in time, Homo sapiens, that's us, if you're not sure about that, lived on the same time as Homo erectus. So we actually met at some point. So it's not like a distant ancestor to us, it's more like a brother to us in some way. Just an older brother, way older brother, died before us, died thousands of years before us. But we came around 330,000 years ago. And that is probably also a number you will find different in different articles. You will find 300,000 years ago in a lot of articles, I think. I have seen one jumping up on my feed lately that says that we have just find out that we was actually evolved 30,000 years earlier than we thought. And it's saying, so now it is 230,000 years ago. And that is strange because I have never heard the number 200,000 years ago. So I think they got the numbers wrong and they mean 300,000 years ago plus the 30 years, so therefore 330 years ago. That's what some other articles are saying, at least. And of what I have seen, there's clearly evidence that Homo sapiens were around at that point in time. So I will just say it as a fact for now that it's 330,000 years ago that Homo sapiens started to live around 330,000 years ago. That's what I have seen of proof and what I believe the most, at least. So then Homo erectus still lived around there, and Homo erectus died off quite a short period of time after we started living. Actually, I think it was only like 100,000 years ago that the latest of the other hominids died out. Like we have the Neanderthals too. That is very famous for living at the same time as us, and was at one point believed to be our nearest ancestor, but now it is clearly more like a brother to us, because it's not like our father in any way. We have not came from the Neanderthals, but the Neanderthals came from, at some point in time at least, the same age as us. It's not like a brother because we didn't evolve from the same ancestor as what we have discovered, but more like more like a half brother to us. No, because then one of our parents would be the same. So it's more like a cousin, actually. Yeah, a cousin, because it's like of what I have seen the latest evidence of, it's like we have Homo sapiens, us and Neanderthals, and then we both have an ancestor like a parent, you can say, an ancestor here, and they're not the same, but they are very close related, closer than us, so quite close related. They were like brothers, you can say, and they have an similar, not a similar, but an shared ancestor up here. So their parents were the same, you can say. So we all have, or not all, but our latest hominids have the shared ancestor here that came to be multiple hominids here, where then we got some Neanderthals and Homo sapiens in the bottom, and some other too. I think there's other on the same level as us. And we were actually, I think, when Homo sapiens started to live, what you call it, when the evolution get to Homo sapiens, then I think there was actually 4 other hominids living at the same time as us. So that's actually quite a lot. That seems like quite an exciting time to live, actually, because now we are only one hominid. That's what science are telling, at least. We are Homo sapiens, all of us. Science considers all the same hominid, Homo sapiens. So imagine how different people are today, actually, but that we all consider the same scientifically. Imagine if there was actually 5 different races of humans compared to that we are only one today. So all these different people to know, and the strangest, more different people you know than yourself. Imagine that is all one race, but you have 4 other races other than the humans existing on the earth today. That will be some very different humans we will have living on the planet, and it sounds quite interesting, I think, if we lived by other hominids that was way different than us. Imagine that some of us could be like 3 meters high. No person are that today. Most of the highest person like 220, 30. And nobody has ever been recorded at least to be more than 3 meters or even close. So imagine there was a race that was 3 meters, where 3 meters was like the average size or something. And imagine there was one another end that was 1 meter, like max. It'll be strange. And then there was one that was maybe very wide in the body, and maybe there was one that was very slim. Like you can imagine us be the average hominid, and then you can imagine the other races going all other directions you can possibly do with your body. It's mostly the body you will discover the difference into, for sure. There will also be some difference in the brain size, probably. So some will be way more clever than others. However, that means the Stone Age, if we just take what we know is the Stone Age from 3 million years ago to 2,000 years ago, or 2,000 years BC, I should say that. Then we have multiple millions of years before we reach 300,000 years ago, where Homo sapiens came. So the Stone Age is actually the age where Homo sapiens, us humans, started to exist. And then there were the races of humanids before us that existed most of the Stone Age. Most of the Stone Age is actually reserved for them, if you think a little bit about it. So of course we cannot really use that to so much to learn about ourselves, to be honest. It's like when you say you have to eat like in the Stone Age, you should not eat like the first million years, at least, because there were no humans there. So you will eat like another race of ape than us. And that is probably not a good idea, because there's a reason we are one race, because we are different from the other races. So the digestive system will, of course, for sure not be the same. So that will make no sense at all to do that. But I have made a whole other video talking about, or not a whole video, but I have been into these food things once. And I really like to go into the food again, but I will make that in a separate video. Now we'll just make a overview over the Stone Age. So this, we have to talk about the foods too. How should you eat? Should you eat like the Stone Age, and which point of the Stone Age should you eat like? I will make a video for that. So I'll try to say no more about that. Now I have told you, so I try to leave that. And then I will probably make one going into details with the tools. I have done a little bit, but I can surely do it more. So I will make one totally allocated to that. And actually I should see how long I have been recording, because I can... Yes, okay, mostly an hour. So I should probably not go into too much details anymore about the Stone Age now. Just finish my overview and then make new videos about the details. I'm just so honked about the Stone Age, I cannot keep myself from moving into the details. And I will do that uncontrollable all the time. So this, we have talked a little bit about the tools, a little bit about the foods, and the Homo sapiens that came around 330,000 years ago, and what happened after that. That is probably the most exciting, or that depends. The evolution from ape to human, of course, also very exciting. But how did humans evolve? Well, our digestive system changed a lot, of course, and I should not talk much about food, but just very quick overview over the food is that, of course, we have the Stone Age starting at 3 million years ago, we can say, ending at 2,000 years ago. We have humans coming here at, I should do it, 3 million years ago, 2,000 years ago. We have human coming around here 330,000 years ago. 300 million years ago we didn't eat meat at all. Or actually we started, that's also a hard topic, because maybe we started before. But we probably use stone before we eat meat, so no matter what, it will be inside the Stone Age anyway. So in the Stone Age we started to eat meat actually. But that was before the humans, so the humans have actually always been eating meat, no matter how you turn it. It depends on your definition of human, but Homo sapiens are always eating meat. So if your definition of human are our single race, Homo sapiens, then we have always been eating meat. But we have not always been farming, because that started only like 10 to 15,000 years ago. So that's all the way down here. So we have 100,000 of years where we have lived like more like hunters than farmers, and then we became farmers, and we have really evolved our farming skills since then. And now we are farming meat too. We're not hunting meat anymore. Hunting meat will be we go out, look for animals, don't know where they are, shoot them, and then eat them. But now we are farming animals. We know where they are. We keep them inside small boxes, and we can kill them in multiple ways without they even have a chance to escape. So there's no problem at all. I made this sound really hard, but it is really hard, and it should definitely be better. We have ecology. I cannot even say it. We have eco food today, biofood. I better like that word in English at least. We have biofood, biological. Is that a short for foods today? And even that kind of food has too harsh of like way of treating the animals. So that's not even good enough. But I can probably speak more about that in the food section of the Stone Age times. I have actually not been talking enough about the tools, because I have a tool right here. It's a very simple tool, and a very like primitive tool, you will maybe call it today, but it's actually a very civilized tool if you think about it. Like, it is quite new. I think I brought it like, actually Actually, I think it's like 3 or 4 years old now, maybe even more. 5 maybe? No, probably not 5. 4 max. Max 4 years old. But it's still holding up quite well. But that's because of our genius human engineer. We are doing so much to a hammer nowadays. If you didn't know it's a hammer, it's clearly a hammer. I hope you knew that before I said it, because else you should be watching another video, I think. Yeah. We are doing so much to a hammer today that that we don't even know and understand. You can see this one is clearly painted black, and you can see it's silver here. It's also very clever because it has always been silver here. That's because the metal is made of steel. If you are not sure about that, it's stainless steel, but it is a bit rusty on the end. But that's because I'm slamming the hammer down here, so it's kind of get some roughness to it, and water can be inside this roughness, and then it can become rust. But it's actually not the metal that is rusty. I can rust it off quite easily, actually. So that's that there's a difference between the metal being rusty and there being rust on the metal. It's quite hard to make steel where it will not get some rust on top of it for some reason. I have not even looked into that, but I actually feel quite interesting, so I should probably look into why that is. However, it's quite smart to make it the metal color here, because then you cannot slam off the color. But then the sides are painted black. Also, of course, this one is not painted. But not just a painting, because it's not going off that easily. Because I have clearly slammed the hammer down this way too. And there's still paint here. So it's not just paint. I'm pretty sure it's also a quality. Like what do we call it? Like it's some layer they put on top to make it better quality, like to not get, I don't know, any deep cuts or something. Make it stronger in some way. I'm pretty sure that it's a lot going on here to make it stronger and longer last. And you can also see the way they have the. But if you don't know how you make a hammer, you have of course a metal head, and that is one single piece of 100% solid metal. And then you make an even hole, often an round, some kind of circular hole, often in some kind of elliptic shape, like this. Then you have a wooden handle, and you plug that into the hole. You often make the wooden handle so it's just fit in the hole, but it's not too hard to get in. It's easy to get in because it's clearly small in the hole. So when you have get the handle all the way inside the hole, then it will still fall off because you could make it in. So if you can make it in, you can also make it out. And therefore they put this metal thing inside the wood that will expand the wood so it fills up all of the hole, and actually tries to fill up more, so it gets squeezed so hard that it will not be possible to move it. And then the hammerhead is stuck on the wood, and you could do that in many ways. In the old days, it will not be so flushed as it is here, and they will just take one metal plate and just hammer it down. But here they have actually used a ring and make it perfectly centered. So it's so beautiful design today, but it doesn't need to be, because it has the same freaking function as a stone from the Stone Age. That's what I'm talking about. But we over-engineered so pretty today. Also the quality are better because of course not a stone, it's steel. but not just steel, it's stainless steel and hardened steel. It's way stronger than iron. So it'll also not break, and it can be smaller and weigh more, and smaller is not always good. And this is a pretty big hammer, and it weighs a lot too, of course. It weighs exactly 1 kilo. I'm not sure about the exactly, that depends on how the definition of exactly is, so probably not. But at what I know of, it should weigh exactly 1 kilo, whatever. It's very hard to weight it because we have the wooden handle too, and it didn't say how much that weighed, because who cares. So I can only guess how much the wood weighs by weighing the hammer and subtracting 1 kilo, and then we have the wood. So I don't know if it's exactly 1 kilo or how close it is, because I cannot weight it, and I don't want to break the hammer just to weight it like that. I'm so stupid I could do it. I'm so scientific into it that I could probably do it someday, but I will not, because it's my only hammer, or at least my best hammer. Yeah, it's actually my only hammer. Also the best hammer I have ever used, so I will not break it. However, this is actually, as I was telling you before, it's the same tool as we used in the Stone Age, or the first stone we used. The first stone we used was probably as a hammer, because axe, then we have to shape it, so it was probably a hammer before it was an axe. So we use a stone as a hammer to hammer things in pieces, to break into a coconut, for example. And later we use an axe for that because an axe is better to that. But imagine we only have a hammer, then we have to use the hammer to many things. Today you will not use a hammer to everything, because we have tools that's better than a hammer to specific tasks. But if you only had a hammer, you could use it for many things. A hammer can solve many problems, you know. So that is actually the first tool we ever made. And this is the peak of evolution engineering on the hammer we have here. That is 9 million years in development, and we are ending here. Imagine this tool has been evolving in 9 million years. Imagine if we had smartphones for 9 million years, how much they have been evolving just the past year. How fast it is being doing with the smartphones, how fast it's been going, I should say. Imagine 9 million years from now what our smartphones can do. You can't, because how should you be able to imagine? I cannot even imagine 100 years from now in the smartphone department. So 9 million years from now, that's a lot. That's how long this tool has been in development. That's just amazing, and I've actually never think about before now. I do that a lot in these videos, think about things for the first time, because it's my thought, just my thoughts now here, and I'm just amazed myself by saying that, but it is a fact. And if you not consider the fact that this has been in development 9 million years, then at least 5 million years, if you think we've been used. It's not 3. We have used stones before 3 million years ago. At least we have used stone as a hammer before 3 million years ago. So but even that, 3 million years ago, 3 million years in development, that's also a lot. But 9 is, of course, 3 times as much, but 9 million years in development, that's amazing. But we have also done so much to it. It's so good quality. Of course, it don't look as good as a throne. It has not the same detail finish to it, because it's made to fucking break stuff with. So if we make details to it, it would be total waste. But they actually do. They have made, like, they have engraved the number 1000, because it's 1000 grams in weight. They have printed with coloring, and also engraved. It's like instead of going inside, it's going out of the hammer. I'm not sure how to make that kind of engraving. I feel like you should sleep off all the side on this, not on this, instead of the letters, whatever. But golden colored letters on the side. Or is it golden or silver? It depends on the light, I'm not sure actually. So that's total waste of engineering here. Because it's a hammer, and you would probably break it anyway. But you very rarely use a hammer like that, but it could break off at some point. So we have doing all this engineering, and I don't know why this is an octagon actually. They have just slipped off the edges, so it's an octagon. I don't know if that is so it's this sharp, but it's not working that great anyway, so I don't know why. Maybe it's just for coolness, for the style of it. So they have done a lot of things to this hammer they would not have done even 100 years ago. It's everything should look pretty today, but also not that hard for us today to make this hammer actually. It's of course not as hard as making a smartphone. It's actually easier to make this hammer than to make a smartphone from 20 years ago. Because that's a complicated device. And there's a lot of different materials here. This is just making the mold the first time and then just put metal in it and it will pops out all the time in the same shape with all the engravings and stuff. So it's not hard to make it. And I think also that's the reason they don't care about going or care, I should say, they actually care about it because they do it. So I must say they're not afraid of going a bit over the top with the engineering of the shape and the prettiness of the engraving and engineering we have going on here. Actually, I cannot stop myself for appreciating that this should be exactly 1 kilo. Because that's just something that fits my brain so much. So perfect. I really like the weight 1 kilo in my hand. I think it's perfect for a hammer. Because I can be quite precise. Of course I can be more precise with a smaller hammer, but I can be quite precise. But I can also stack the hell out of things with this hammer. So things it's a good middle point. And we maybe say it's not a middle point, 1 kilo hammer, that's the biggest hammer you can get. And in this one-handed size, yeah. But you can get the long-handled hammers with 5 kilos in weight. So you can get hammers. And you can even get 2 kilos. So it's not because it jumped from 1 to 5. You can get 2, 3, 4, 5 kilos. So it is actually kind of in the middle. But it's the biggest hammer you can get to use in one hand. Actually, it's kind of two-handed too, but that's most hammers. If you really wanted to, it's three-handed actually. Even when you get big hands, you can have 3 hands on it. But it's not had a meter long scrap, so it's not made to only be used with 2 hands. It's the biggest hammer that is made to be able to be used with 1 hand. I can do that. I'm also strong, but I don't think you can do that. Most people can do that in some way or another. So yes, it is kind of big, but I also like it big and heavy, and I am strong, so it makes sense to buy the biggest one-handed hammer, because then you can do everything you can do with a one-handed hammer, but better and more and stuff. I think I really like it, but I not just like it because I think 1 kilo is perfect for a hammer. I think 1 kilo is perfect for many things. I really like the weight of it. And also, maybe that's why it's 1 kilo, because actually the way we invented 1 kilo was just by saying this is 1 kilo. It's the first thing we invented. It's not invented because of other things. And I really get the reason why, because 1 kilo just fits in my brain. It fits in a human brain. For our human size and our human strength, then 1 kilo makes sense. 1 kilo is like 1. It's like how you count 1. It's like where we'll start. That is 1 of this weight. Like, it kind of makes sense for me, but I also want to make a video dedicated to the discovery of 1 kilo and stuff, because I find it really interesting. I have read a lot about the story about that and how it has evolved. So I really want to talk about that in another video. However, I think I have at least been talking a little bit about the Stone Age and giving an overview of how it started and ended and what have been happening in the middle of it and so on. I actually have a banana juice here. I have not been drinking. Really tasty. Yes, it is actually banana juice. Juice made of banana. The only fruit in this juice is banana. I find it strange because I have not seen it before a couple of years ago. If even a couple of years, or maybe just 1 year ago. But it's really good, so don't know why it's not more widespread. At least in my country and in Europe. I have been many places in Europe. I've never seen banana juice before. I've seen banana milk instead of cacao milk. So they have normal milk and cacao milk, but in some countries they have banana milk and strawberry milk and stuff. So strawberry milk is also good, but banana milk, of course, I love that. Banana milk is some of the best thing I've ever tasted. So but banana juice, I have not seen that before, but it's really good. And that's also fitting the Stone Age well, because of course we are apes and apes love banana. So again, I'm a very Stone Age man. I love the simple pleasures of the Stone Age and bananas. I really love bananas. But yeah, again, the Stone Age started before humankind, started before meat eating. Humankind started in the Stone Age, meat eating started in the Stone Age. We have farming starting in the late Stone Age, and the Stone Age ended by the invention of bronze. And it is exactly bronze, because the next age is the Bronze Age. And the definition of the start of the Bronze Age is exactly the first point in time we have seen bronze relic from that specific place in the world. And that is why the Stone Age are ending in different point in time in different parts of the world. I don't know why I'm telling you this 1 hour in the video. This should be one of the first thing I'm telling you. That's the definition of the end of the Stone Age. But we also invented another metal before bronze, at least one, and invented, more like discovered, invented a use for, invented the tools that could make the metal, I should say, and that is of course copper. Bronze is made of copper and another material, and that can be multiple things. For example, tin. So of course, copper and tin, we have developed that before we developed bronze, because else we could not develop bronze. So copper and tin are actually inventions specifically per definition made in the Stone Age, because the Stone Age per definition ends when bronze is invented. So that means we have used copper and tin in the Stone Age. And that doesn't make sense for me, because it's called the Stone Age and not the Metal Age or something, the Copper Age. So how can we use metal in the Stone Age? It doesn't make sense for me to call it Stone Age when we are starting using metal. But apparently we have not used copper and tin for that long before we invented bronze. So it doesn't really matter, because we cannot estimate it that precisely anyway. Because maybe we are wrong and discover in some years that they have actually made bronze 1,000 years before we thought they have. So if we say the Stone Age ended 2,000 years ago or 3,000 years ago, that doesn't really matter for now, because we probably discover in 20 years from now that the Stone Age actually ended 1,000 years before that even. So I don't care that much about that, because the Stone Age is 3 million years, and for most of that time we only used stone, and we didn't use copper or tin or something like that at all. So that is the last thing that really happened. The last significant thing that happened in the Stone Age was the invention of copper and tin, and not bronze, because the bronze is the first thing happening in the Bronze Age, because immediately when we invented bronze, it became the Bronze Age. So bronze invention cannot be the end of the Stone Age. It's actually start of the Bronze Age. However, same freaking thing. It's like 1 second difference. The second the metal has hardened and become bronze, that's the second we enter the Bronze Age. So bronze didn't exist in the Stone Age at any point, because when it existed, it was the Bronze Age. But that's 1 second after the Stone Age ended. So that's my thinking again, thinking too much. It doesn't matter shit. But now explain why it doesn't matter, and because I explain why it doesn't matter, it seems like it mattered to me. And it kind of mattered to me, because it mattered to me why something doesn't matter to me. That's how I'm thinking all the time. It's so stupid, I know it, but also clever, or is it? I don't know. But it's a waste of your time for me to explain to you. I'm pretty sure you think that. That is probably the biggest thing happening in the Stone Age. Also, we're trying to live together in bigger groups than we have done before. Like prior in the Stone Age, it was like 15, 20, maybe 30 apes or something together. But I'm believing that in the end of the Stone Age, we started to live like more than 100 people together. I should not say people, because in the end of the Stone Age, it was only Homo sapiens that were left, and we are, of course, people. I define every Homo sapiens as people. And I even define some Homo erectus as people sometimes. But at least every Homo sapiens that have ever lived are people. I will say that. Maybe they don't speak English, maybe they don't speak at all in a language that makes sense to us now, but they are still people to me, I think. But what is people? There could be a whole video for itself, what is people. But I think I'm gonna end here, and this time I will look before I end, because normally the video has stopped exactly the point where I start the ending, but it probably stopped now, because now I'm starting the ending. Whatever. I think I have covered the most basic principles of the Stone Age and giving a quite okay overview over the Stone Age. I've also been off-topping, no toppings here, I don't use topping in my videos. I've been off-topic a lot, maybe more than ever, but again, it's the Stone Age and I think a lot about the Stone Age. That means I also think a lot about other stuff when I think about the Stone Age. So, and again, I compare everything to the Stone Age, so I can therefore also compare the Stone Age to everything. Again, when I think about smartphones, I think about the Stone Age. When I think about the people, which party I should go to, I think about the Stone Age. So I can also think about smartphones when I think about the Stone Age. So that makes kind of sense, I guess, or not. But that's because nothing makes sense in my head anyway. So this has been the overview of the Stone Age and the most significant points in time through the Stone Age. And now I will start making some videos about some specific details of the Stone Age. And as I have told you, I'll make one about foods, and I'll make one about tools at least. And maybe I should make one about metal. Well, that can be in the tools actually. So tools in the Stone Age and tools after the Stone Age, probably. And what should I make? Maybe something about colonies, like something about how many people were together and so on. Maybe about hunting, but that's probably food, because food is what we eat and we hunt to eat. Maybe something about other animals that lived at the same time as us throughout the Stone Age, because there have been some interesting animals living at that point in time. Actually, there has been many animals that go extinct. Now I remember the word. Now I do it. I have said died out and so many other things, even in this video, but now I remember the word instinct. Instinct. No, instinct is something you... Oh, fuck. Extinct, right? Oh, whatever. Yes, many animals has died out, has gone extinct in Homo sapiens, human sapiens, that's what we should call it. Homo sapiens lifetimes. Oh my god, my times are fucked up now. Time in not computer. Okay, so yeah. At least my next video will probably be about the foods. And then some about tools. Or maybe the opposite way around, I don't know. I will probably make these two and then I will think about what I can talk about the Stone Age, apart from these things. But if you like this video, maybe you should subscribe for more videos. If not, the upcoming videos about the Stone Age, then for other videos of trips inside my head. or maybe the other videos I have on my channel. I have a lot of videos on my channel. I have tech reviews, unboxings, travel vlogs, gaming videos. Check it out, maybe there's something you like. And if you really like this video, consider liking it. And well, I guess you will find out when I upload more videos about the Stone Age, and you will see what these videos are more specifically about when that happens. And until then, I guess I see you next one. Bye bye.